Hmm. So why does Web3 exist? To understand that, you need to understand the key advantages that these blockchains provide. And if you think about blockchains, blockchains are fundamentally an infra for managing assets. So with an asset, you have certain associated activities like ownership of the asset, permissions given to someone else to use the asset on someone else's behalf, and tracking and verification like transferring the asset to someone else and tracking from where the asset went to where, and verifying it, the auditing part and stuff. So with blockchains, you get to do all of that. Like it's an infra designed for assets, and being that it also comes with an added feature which is called computational verifiability or verifiable computation. And what that means is that you can trust in a blockchain that any activity that is happening on the blockchain is adhering to certain guidelines or certain principles that are defined in the code of the blockchain. So, like it is defined in the code of Bitcoin that there cannot be more than a certain number of Bitcoins, and until unless you change the code, that property will remain true. Similarly, Ethereum also has its own property, and what you get with computational verifiability is a sense of surety and a sense of trust that anything that is happening on the blockchain is adhering to the system or guidelines defined in that blockchain. Like if you remember from last video, whenever transaction is added to the blockchain, the node or the network operators, they verify and validate the transaction. So when they verify and validate the transaction, certain attributes are seen, and it is measured against, and or you can say verified and validated against certain guidelines that the transaction has to adhere to this properties. And if it is not there, the transaction is rejected and not added to the blockchain. So by default, anything that is happening on the blockchain and it is there registered on the blockchain, you can be sure that it follows certain guidelines. So you get the computational verifiability there. And when you apply these blockchain properties to the problems of different industry verticals, you can either improve existing solutions in those industries, or you can unlock new opportunities and you can solve new problems. So for example, in finance, you can do many kind of things with assets and commodities, exchanges, lending, borrowing protocols, and insurance and stuff. With the entertainment sector, the entire dynamics of intellectual property comes into play. So you can see that getting involved in arts, music, movies, any kind of content, and the kind of finance management associated with these IP properties, like IP right management, and how the royalties will get distributed. You can also explore real world assets, like there's a tokenization of real world assets to bring them on chain, and then you can do all sort of activity associated with them on the blockchain itself. Like you can tokenize a real estate property, and then all of the transfers and ownership things will happen on the blockchain itself. Supply chain logistics include tamper proof tracking of goods, like goods are moving from one point to another, and you can actually verify it at each point and put that on blockchain. There are identity networks which are like you can bring Aadhaar on blockchain, you can bring passport networks on chain, you can bring SSN network on chain. Each country has their own identity network. You can bring that on chain, and similarly, like all of these social media platforms are also a kind of identity network, so you can bring that on chain as well. Now, blockchains are sort of a technology that aims to democratize the big tech. If you look at various industry verticals around you, these industry verticals have some centralized and established players. So with video content, you will have YouTube and Instagram. With ride hailing, you have Uber and Ola. For food, we have Zomato and Swiggy in India. And for Mm, I cannot think like of more examples. Quick commerce is there, Zepto and Blinkit are there in India. For e-commerce, you have this Flipkart and Amazon. So you can think of any market vertical, and you will find some centralized players there dominating that market space. Again, like these are the dynamics of how these markets generally evolve, and these basically what I'm trying to say here is that all of these are centralized marketplaces. They are aggregator of sort, and the more technical term for for them is that they are two-sided online marketplaces, and they basically aggregate the service providers and service consumers on their platform. And there are certain dynamics which, because of which innovation is stifled after some time. So you get these problems because a they are centralized platforms, and they usually follow subscription models. So ownership is delegated. Like if you think about Netflix or Prime, you can watch or stream any show, but you don't really own it. And if you think about video games, if you buy anything, you kind of sort of own it, but within the realms of that game developer. So that is there. What happens with these networks is that they have their own network effects, and they are designed in such a way that they have self-propelling flywheels, and you can think of them like, if you take an example of a ride-hailing network, that network will start with some taxi drivers as the service providers. Then some users would come, and with more users you would need more taxi drivers, and like that it keeps on uh, moving between itself, and that's how the network grows. So once the network grows to a sufficient point, there comes a barrier to entry, and with barrier to entry there is a problem in innovation, and you know solving more problems in the market. So there's usually an attract extract cycle, which is that when these networks start, they'll collaborate with all of the entities to get traction on their own network, and they'll attract people to their network. And once they have achieved a certain level of scale, they start doing the extraction. So, for example, with Facebook and Twitter, you can remember that in early days there used to be open APIs, and a lot of third-party collaborations were happening. With Facebook, there were gaming companies. With Twitter, there were third-party software services that were solving some problems of the problems that people were facing on Twitter. And in the initial stages, these were encouraged to do these things because that made the networks more lucrative and easier for people to be there and operate. But when these networks achieved a certain scale, the APIs were shut down. All of these collaborators, all of these people who were building stuff on the network, they were shooed away in a way. So that's how attract extract cycle happened there. And with Amazon, they initially onboarded a lot of sellers. Now Amazon has a lot of data on which region uses which kind of product the most, and which is the most selling product in a particular category, and they started creating their own knockoffs in that category. So that is an attract extract cycle there. With Amazon Prime, you can think that they onboarded a lot of titles and viewers in the initial stage. Now for any kind of content that you want to watch on Amazon, you either need to rent it or you need to buy an add-on. And with the basic subscription tier, you get a lot of ads now as well. So that is an attract extract cycle there. This is a very common pattern. Like market usually converges to a few players only in every market segment. whenever a new market opens up, a new market starts to form, a lot of innovators come into play. They try different things, and over a period of time, through merger and acquisitions, and companies shutting down and getting bankrupt, some way or the other, the market converges into a few players only. There's usually two dominant players in every market, and then other some uh, four or five niche players. That is the general dynamics of any kind of market. So this is seen across various industries, and the blockchain can democratize this up to some extent in theory. The ideology is that whether that will unfold in reality or not, that is yet to be seen. The problem with these closed environments is that they limit innovation, disruption, and progress. So, like with Twitter, you have a problem of bots and stuff. Nobody is incentivized to solve that. Only if Twitter wants to solve it, they'll be able to do it. So, innovation is limited there. There's no incentive to solve the problems of these big networks, because people are not really incentivized to do that. And this prevents disruption, and this in general, this also prevents a good user experience. Like user experience suffers because of this, and in general, progress suffers because of this. Web3 is an ideology of building digital applications in a certain way that kind of tries to solve this big tech problem. And the ideology is that digital applications could be built in an open way that anybody can access, or anybody can build on top of these applications. These applications can be public, anybody can view and verify the data and code. Like we use so many platforms nowadays whose recommendation algorithm we don't even know how it functions. So if you are able to see the underlying code, that is a big win in understanding how these platforms actually dictate and govern your life. So that is there, and Web3 also tries to build these applications in a decentralized manner. So anybody can help in running and maintaining these kind of applications, and Web3 is immutable. Like whatever has happened, happened. You cannot change it or tamper it. So it comes with a certain level of surety that whatever is there is there. You cannot continuously update things and force the updates to the users. But Web3 has its own flaws as well. So all of the data is public on Web3, but in many use cases, you won't want to have the data as public. So there is a segment called zero knowledge proofs that try to solve that problem of public data. Let's see where it goes. Web3 is also anonymous, like a lot of things that happen on the blockchain are anonymous, that give a space for illegitimate things to happen. So that is again an issue with Web3. For that, I think mostly there would be regulated sandboxes in the future. So it would play out in a way, web played out, the dark web and the white web. So that can happen. Web3 is decentralized. Now, decentralization is a slightly vague term. It's very hard to quantify decentralization. So that is again a very talked about and debatable topic in this industry. And the technology overall is at a very nascent stage. So it's not really ready for day-to-day usage. People are improving the technology. It's in constant progress. So most likely it will be ready in a few years. So yeah, that was all about why Web3 exists. General disclaimer goes that avoid scammers in the comment section. You can drop your questions in the comment section. You can ask, you can suggest any topic that you would like to know more about, and yeah, share it with the people who might find it relevant. See you in the next one.